ceasefire. Hope sank for Palestinian families in Gaza and families of hostages in Israel. And I was reminded yesterday when I met again with hostage families. And that is why I've consistently been pushing for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, a permanent ceasefire, and full humanitarian access. In times like these, we must be crystal clear about the situation. With crossing points into Gaza shut and aid blockaded, security is in shambles and our capacity to deliver has been strangled. And as the heads of UN humanitarian organizations declared in a joint statement yesterday, and I quote, assertions that there is now enough food to feed all Palestinians in Gaza are far from the reality on the ground, and commodities are running extremely low. End of quote. We must also be clear about the obligations. As the occupying power, Israel has unequivocal obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Article 55, paragraph 1st of the Forced Geneva Convention provides that, and I quote, the occupying power has the duty of ensuring food and medical supplies of the population. End of quote. Article 56, paragraph 1 of the Forced Geneva Convention provides that, and I quote, the occupying power has the duty of ensuring and maintaining the medical and hospital establishments and services, public health and hygiene in the occupied territory. End of quote. It further states that medical personnel of all categories shall be allowed to carry out their duties. And Article 59, paragraph 1st of the Forced Geneva Convention provides that, and I quote, if the whole or part of the population of an occupied territory is inadequately supplied, the occupying power shall agree to relief schemes on behalf of the said population that shall facilitate them by all means at its disposal. End of quote. None of that is happening today. No humanitarian supplies can enter Gaza. Meanwhile, at the crossing points, food, medicine, and shelter supplies are piling up and vital equipment is stuck. International humanitarian law also includes the obligation to respect humanitarian relief personnel. But I want to say a special word about those humanitarian heroes in Gaza. They are under fire and yet doing all they can to follow the path they choose to help people. UN agencies and our partners are ready and determined to deliver. But Israeli authorities' newly proposed authorization mechanisms for aid delivery risk further controlling and callously limiting aid down to the last calorie and grain of flour. Let me be clear. We will not participate in any arrangement that does not fully respect the humanitarian principles, humanity, impartiality, independence, and neutrality. Unimpeded humanitarian access must be guaranteed, and humanitarian personnel must be given the protection that they are accorded under international law. The inviolability of United Nations premises and assets must be respected. And I call once again for an independent investigation into the killing of humanitarians, including UN personnel. We must stick to our core principles. Member states of the United Nations must adhere to their obligations under international law. There must be justice and accountability when they do not. The world may be running out of words to describe the situation in Gaza, but we will never run away from the truth. The current path is a dead end, totally intolerable in the eyes of international law and history. And the risk of the occupied West Bank transforming into another Gaza makes it even worse. It is time to end the dehumanization, to protect civilians, release the hostages, ensuring life-saving aid, and renew the ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Secretary General, this is Sherif Hitchinson from Anadolu Agency. I actually have a question about the press conference between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump yesterday. If you may recall, they once again reiterated President Trump's vision to relocate the Gazans to countries who are willing to take them. So I just want to know if you think this is forced displacement and isn't that a war crime? And if I may just ask one additional question, Prime Minister Netanyahu, actually in a rather pitiful way, said that the Gazan people are locked in Gaza. And I just want to know, in your opinion, who is locking the Gazan people in there? For example, is the UN able to, carry out urgent medical evacuations if they want to? Is this a possibility right now in Gaza? Thank you.
Palestinians must be able to live in a Palestinian state side by side with an Israeli state. That is the only solution that can bring peace to the Middle East. Medical evacuations are absolutely essential, and everything must be done to increase the number of medical evacuations.
And forced displacement?
Sorry?
Forced displacement? I mean, sending the Gazan people to other countries?
As I said, Palestinians have the right to live in Palestine, in a Palestinian state, side by side with the Israeli state. To be forced to be moved away is something that is against international law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. As I'm sure you have been reading, President Trump has imposed widespread tariffs on almost every country in the world. I wonder if you could give us your reaction to this, and are you concerned that this could lead to a global economic recession?
I've been clarifying my position about this issue time and time again. Trade wars are extremely negative. Nobody wins with a trade war. Everybody tends to lose. And I'm particularly worried with the most vulnerable developing countries in which the impact will be more devastating. I sincerely hope that we will have no recession, because a recession will have dramatic consequences, especially for the poorest people in the world.
Gabriel? Mr. Secretary General, Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. In your remarks just now, you said the world may be running out of words to describe the situation in Gaza. However, much of the world does have a word to describe what's happening in Gaza, and that word is genocide. You have been consistent over the last 18 months that you feel it's up to a relevant international court to determine if a genocide is taking place in Gaza. However, my question, sir, is do you understand how so many people around the world do look at what's happening in Gaza as a genocide?
I think that the situation is sufficiently horrible not to be worried with the semantics. There is a competence of the International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice was seized exactly in relation to that. And the International Court of Justice is a body of the UN, and I respect the decisions of the International Court of Justice. But as I said, the situation is absolutely horrible. There is no doubt about that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General Abdel Hamid Siyama from the Arabic Daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Mr. Secretary General, you keep saying nothing justifies October 7. You keep repeating that all the time, that nothing justifies what happened on October 7. Is there anything justifies 56 years of occupation? Is there anything justify the settlement activities? Is there anything justify bulldozing many thousands of Palestinian homes? Is there anything justifies the invasion of Jerusalem and not allowing Palestinians to go to the Holy Mosque? Why you keep repeating that as if history started on October 7th? Thank you.
You listen carefully to what I say, I always say, when I say nothing justifies the October 7 horrible terror attacks by Hamas, I always add, and nothing justifies the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. And all the things that you have been described correspond exactly to the collective punishment of the Palestinian people.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Human Rights Council lead the investigation you keep calling for?
What happened? She's getting her teeth. So she has started biting now.
Teething started? Wow. Did you bring Kiko toothpaste?
Kiko toothpaste.
Because Kiko toothpaste is 75% lesser abrasive on baby's teeth and it is fluoride and preservative free. Cute smiles today, healthy teeth tomorrow.
For horrendous wages. That is the type of trade policy which I detest. But I want to move to an area to talk about the legal basis of what President Trump has done. President Trump said, Mr. Greer, that he had no choice in terms of Canada. And I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. He had no choice but to bypass Congress and to impose an emergency 25% tariff on Canada to stop, quote, the massive, end quote, amount of fentanyl and, quote, the millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from the northern border. Unfortunately, that's a lie. The truth is that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported just 43 pounds of fentanyl was seized at the Canadian border last year, representing just 0.2% of the total. Now, we could agree that 1 pound of fentanyl is too much. But if 0.2% constitutes an emergency, my guess is illegal drugs are coming in from every country in the world. and that gives the President of the United States incredible power to determine tariffs. Further, he said he talked about millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from Canada. In fact, last year there were 24,000 people, not millions and millions. First question, really, we can argue about tariffs, but why does the president have to lie all of the time in order to make his point?
So Senator, I would just refute that when the president is talking about the nature of the emergency we have. I mean,
Can you talk a little bit closer into the mic, please?
Certainly. Senator, I would just say, I think you need to look at what the president issued in terms of the order for the legal basis for what we're doing, right? I mean, the president very rightly hit on this issue of fentanyl migration coming from northern southern borders, and it's a real emergency. Migration coming from northern southern borders, and it's a real emergency.
Drugs are a real emergency. 0.2%. You can then argue illegal drugs come from every country in the world. If you declare that as an emergency, you're giving the President of the United States unbelievable power. Let me go on that point. Let me mention to you what you probably know. 7 Republicans have joined a number of Democrats on legislation reasserting Congress's ability to play an active role in trade and tariffs. That on the Republican side was led by Senator Grassley. And he said, and I quote, "For too long, Congress has delegated its clear authority to regulate interstate and foreign commerce to the executive branch, et cetera, et cetera." He wants to reassert Congress's constitutional role and ensure Congress has a voice in trade policy, end of quote. In the last 2 weeks, all we have seen is reports in the newspaper. Congress has not had 1 ounce of authority in determining tariff policy. Do you think Congress should be completely left out of the process? Or does the president have emergency power to do anything he wants with regard to tariffs?
Senator, my staff has had over 200 meetings with congressional offices in the past 2 months to consult. The president's been very transparent about what he wants to do on tariffs. Congress delegated a law to him to take this action.
Mr. Greer, you can have all the meetings you want. You and I had a nice meeting. But at the end of the day, the president did exactly what he wanted to do without any discussion, formal discussion with members of Congress. He could make recommendations to Congress, that's for sure. Do you really think that he has the power under an emergency degree to reorder the trade world, global trade policy, without any input from the United States Congress?
Sir, Congress gave him this law where if he determines a national emergency, he can take appropriate action to regulate imports. That's what he's done.
Do you think it's a national emergency that 0.2% of fentanyl coming from Canada constitutes a national emergency?
Sir,
do you?
The president has determined that Canada,
I'm asking you.
You're asking me about drug policy. So I agree with the president. If you have China and Canada and Mexico putting drugs into this country at different levels, then that's an emergency. We have to deal with it.
Look, we're not going to argue about the danger of drugs. 43 pounds of fentanyl. On that basis, the president can declare an emergency with any country on earth and take unlimited power. That's called authoritarianism. Okay? That's not what a democracy does. Do you have any concerns about all of that power going into the hands of the president?
Sir, Congress delegated this power to the president. He has to renew the emergency every year. He has to give reports to Congress. The Congress told him what he has to do to use this authority, and he's doing those things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have, you've been going now 2 hours and almost 40 minutes, but we have one more question. Senator Wyden has one more question, and then we'll
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Greer, we've been at this a long time, and you've offered a lot of word salad about international trade, reciprocity and metrics, and the list goes on and on. But inside this verbiage, you've ducked a very big question. And that is, how can you negotiate with scores of countries before Americans see their 401ks go up in smoke? And so what I'd like to do is just ask you one simple question to wrap this up, because at home in Oregon, people want to know what we're doing to help the people who are hurting today, not months and months or elections and all kinds of dates far in the future. So here's my question to wrap up. When will those hurting now see real relief?
Senator, the country decisively voted for this president and his trade policy. He knows how to use tariffs appropriately to negotiate deals where necessary and to drive investment and manufacturing back to the U.S. And that's what we're doing. He was successful in his first term in using it. Real wages went up, and that's what we're doing now. And we're working around the clock to make sure we can do that.
Mr. Greer, I gave you a chance to respond to the question, and what you said wasn't accurate. Nobody disputes that the president won the election up here on the dais. But nobody was told in the election campaign that we would have all of these people hurting now because of a flawed trade policy. Once in a while, it would maybe take a little time, but there wasn't any mention of people from one end of the country to another feeling they've been wiped out financially. Nobody heard about that. That was never discussed. Hope you'll have an answer for me, because that's what Americans want to know who are hurting now. They've listened to all of this trade lingo tossed around, and then they scratch their head and say, who's going to stand up for me now? Well, I'll tell you, we're going to fight for those people. That's why I'm proposing a bipartisan resolution that would overturn what's going on with 180 countries. We'll keep the record open for a few days, but what I'd like to know is what the timetable is for helping people who are hurting right now, because I haven't heard anything on that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. And we are now at the conclusion of the questions. Ambassador Greer, thank you for the time you've given us. As I indicated, you've gone almost 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I think you have been very clear about what the president's intentions are and how you expect this to roll out. The questions for the record deadline is Tuesday, April 15th for members of the Senate. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
Sir, bro, you're doing the new Rupee credit card ad.
The credit card that works on UPI. It's fantastic.
Don't do it.
What? Why?
Bro, this card slays, but you're so Y2K. Don't be salty. Sir, bro.
Salty? Popcorn ho gaya.
Add Slay to your pay. Ask for Rupee.
क्या आज फिर मूड का बैंड बजेगा? बज गया।
रोज सुबह वही सैड मूड।
बाथरूम डल तो मॉर्निंग डल।
डिटर्जेंट से घिसते तो हैं हम।
डिटर्जेंट की डलनेस हटाओ, हार्पिक बाथरूम क्लीनर की चमक लाओ। काई पीलापन आसानी से हटाए और करे 10 गुना ज्यादा साफ।
वाओ!
हार्पिक बाथरूम क्लीनर, बाथरूम जगमगाए
तो दिन बन जाए।
Do you agree with that? Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that. Don't leave. We'll talk about that. Hello, everybody. So before we begin, we're going to talk about how good some of these numbers are, be way ahead of schedule, especially as respect to manufacturing and manufacturing jobs. It's taking hold, and we've only been here a few weeks, but it's really, it's going to be something. I don't know if the rest of the world likes it, but people in the U.S. like it, that I can tell you. If I might, could you talk about the student loan situation, please?
So later this afternoon, we're going to have prepared for your signature an executive order dealing with the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. This is a program that's designed to expedite basically the conclusion of payments on student loans for people who have taken out federally backed student loans. The problem, though, is that a lot of these people work for NGO organizations, for nonprofit organizations that engage in illegal or what we would consider to be improper activities, supporting, for example, illegal immigration or foreign terrorist organizations or otherwise law-breaking activities. So this executive order will direct your Department of Education and Department of the Treasury to basically bring about modifications to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program in order to ensure that people who are engaged in these sorts of activities can't benefit from a program that's really not intended to support those sorts of things.
And what are the consequences if they are not good?
The consequences would be that they wouldn't get forgiveness of their student loans as they would be eligible for if they were working for the government or a normal nonprofit that's not violating the law.
All right. Any questions on that? Anybody have any questions? So we'll talk about the manufacturing turnaround, and it's been very early, but it's pretty significant. The numbers were much better, as you know, than projected by the media, and a little surprising, actually, how strong, how fast, because we have many companies are moving into our country. As you probably know, it's a statistic that everyone talks about, but nobody seems to have done much about. Since the beginning of NAFTA, there's been 90,000 plants and factories closed in this country. Think of that. 90,000 plants and factories have been closed in this country. Many of them have been car manufacturing plants. And that's a terrible statistic, and we'll be turning that around. You're going to see it already. We already have numerous that are being built or starting to be built, and numerous that were being built in other countries, and they stopped, and they're coming here now because of the tariffs. And that's a big deal. That's what you want to hear. During the last year, the Biden administration saw a loss of more than 110,000 manufacturing jobs, or 9,000 manufacturing jobs every single month. It averaged about 9,000 a month, 110,000 manufacturing jobs. During the first full month in office, we've not only stopped that manufacturing collapse, but we've begun to rapidly reverse it and get major gains. We created 10,000 manufacturing jobs in February alone. That hasn't happened in a long time. And these aren't government jobs, which actually we cut. These are private sector manufacturing jobs. So we gained all of those jobs, 10,000 jobs, and we barely started yet. It's a very unusual number. People are surprised by it. I'm even a little surprised. On auto jobs, we created almost 9,000 new jobs in the auto production field. And the reason for that is largely they think things are happening, so they're already geared up. In some cases, they had rooms in their plants, or they had empty plants that they were able to put into use quickly because they see, because of the tariffs, they don't want to be dealing with other places, and they don't want to go back and forth and around and through the borders and across Mexico border and Canada border and all of, they want to have the jobs in one location. And they've had space, and if they had space, they were able to create the jobs almost immediately. In some cases, they'll be building plants to take care of those jobs. So we created 9,000 new jobs already in the auto production, auto parts manufacturing. So we want the auto parts ideally, and I think from a simplicity standpoint too, to be built and made in the United States. It's in a single month. That all took place in a single month, 9,000 new auto jobs. You haven't heard that in a long time. After auto workers lost more than 27,000 auto jobs in the final year of Biden. These are also high-paying jobs. These are very prime jobs.
क्या हुआ? इसके दांत आ रहे हैं ना, तो काटने लगी है।
दांत आ गए? वाह। कीको टूथपेस्ट आया कि नहीं?
कीको टूथपेस्ट क्यों?
क्योंकि कीको टूथपेस्ट है 75% लेसर अब्रेसिव ऑन बेबीज टीथ और है फ्लोराइड एंड प्रिजर्वेटिव फ्री। क्यूट स्माइल्स टुडे, हेल्दी टीथ टुमारो।
The ISM Manufacturing Survey and the S&P Manufacturing Survey have also confirmed that our administration is presiding over a brand new domestic manufacturing boom after major collapse under Biden. It was a collapse. All he did is keep adding new government jobs, which are not the jobs you want. We're trying to shrink government and grow the private sector. That's what we've been doing. Under the final 2 years of Biden, 1 in every 4 jobs created in America was a government job. That's a tremendous percentage. But under the first full month of President Trump, which we haven't even gotten started yet, an incredible 93% of all job gains were in the private sector. So that statistic just came out. Big gains for native-born Americans. For the first time in 15 months, the job gains for native-born Americans, for American people, people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months. And they put it into effect pretty quickly. They have confidence that what I'm saying is going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask a highly respected gentleman, Kevin Hassett. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been right about a lot. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and Kevin was a big part of it. So Kevin, could you maybe give it a little description, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. I think that the 3 things that you emphasized during the campaign is that you wanted to create domestic, high-paying manufacturing jobs, that you wanted to end wasteful government spending and reduce the unproductive government workers, and in fact, unleash them into the private economy where they could be more productive, and to create jobs for Americans. A lot of people said that if you deported illegals, that employment would go down because no Americans would take those jobs. And if you look, 280,000 American-born folks were hired, manufacturing jobs are going up. And this is just out of the expectation of your future policies, really, sir. It's in April when your Reciprocal Trade Act is expected to happen. The tax cuts haven't passed yet. And so people are clearly expecting the golden age. And if you want to forecast the future numbers, everybody, just keep in mind that President Trump has already gotten us $1.7 trillion in commitments of new factories. And those haven't even happened yet. Those aren't even in the numbers. And so I expect this is going to be a glimpse of a golden age to come, sir.
Thank you very much. One other thing, in Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of, but under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada. But our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold, but we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%. Nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers. So that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. Never has been fair. And they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody, and that stops now. I had it stopped in my first term, and we're going to really stop it now because this has been very unfair. Our country, from an economic standpoint and financial standpoint and a trade standpoint, has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico, and then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. We do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU was formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong. And, if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine, but they can't do like they used to do because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA. So we're not going to have that, and we're going to see them build it back. Now we've already had 5 major automobile companies.
Maga, chilling andre, Kabban Park, sweet andre, Mysore Park. Weather andre, perfect fit. Cinema andre, super hit. 10 minutes andre.
Boys, big basket. 10 minutes andre, big basket. 10 minutes andre, big basket.
Big Basket, delivering in Bengaluru and everywhere in 10 minutes.
Nourishing my essence helps me feel radiant. Taking time for myself restores my glow. It's these small, mindful rituals that make me feel truly me, that make me feel like Shadvari, because beauty is rooted in you. Well-being nutrition for the beauty within.
First time you've heard this in a long time, since my first term, actually, where we were really rocking and rolling. And then Biden came in and he stopped everything, like such a stupid thing to do, not even a believable thing. But we have many auto plants now coming in. We have big chip plants. We have the biggest chip company in the world, most powerful, probably one of the most powerful companies in the world. Wouldn't you say, Kevin? And he's coming in and they're building one of the largest chip plants in the world. That'll be done in Arizona, mostly in Arizona. And that'll give us a big percentage. At one plant will give us a big percentage of the chip market, something we have very little of. we used to have Intel, and Intel was run by a man named Andy Grove. And Andy Grove was a tough, smart guy. I used to read about him when I was a young man, and he did an incredible job. He really dominated the chip business. And then he died, and I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in the seat because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily, but so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips. The brake of a car, cars have chips all over the place. I was reading an article the other day where they talk about the brakes of a car are loaded up with chips. Who would think that a brake has a chip in it? But it's all about chips. So that was a big thing. And he'll be investing hundreds of billions of dollars in this country, and we'll be taking back a big, big portion of that industry. We have others coming in too. But a lot of car manufacturers are coming in, and they're coming in fast. And one of the reasons you see these numbers, and again, Kevin said it, and I said it a little bit, but the fact that they know I won the election. So after I was president-elect, they assumed that I was going to do what I said, because I do what I say. And so these numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th, right? So Kevin, thank you very much. Great job. Any questions?
Mr. President, how concerned are you that the large-scale federal government layoffs will weaken the labor market? How concerned are you?
The large-scale fentanyl what?
The federal government layoffs will impact the labor market, will weaken the labor market.
Oh. No, I think the labor market's going to be fantastic, but it's going to have high-paying manufacturing jobs as opposed to government jobs. We had too many people in government. You can't just do that. We had too many. This is for 40 years. You know, this isn't just now. This built up and got worse and worse, and they just hire more and more people. You look at Department of Education, it seems like so many buildings I ride by, it says Department of Education. They're all over the place. And we don't even want it. We want the education to be given by the states. It'll be much better. It'll move us to the top of the list from the bottom of the list, and actually save us money. But not, it's too important to even talk about them. It'll save us a lot of money, but we don't want that. We want education to be given. So you go to Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and all these places, they're so well run. They're going to be producing education that will be the equivalent of, like Denmark is one, Norway, Sweden. Actually, China is one of the better in terms of education. And so we can't blame size anymore. You know, China has 1.4 billion people, but they're very high on their list. The one thing we're doing well on, we're number one on the list, is cost per pupil. We spend more money than any other country in the world by far. So I jokingly say the one thing we do well on is the cost. We spend more money, and yet we're toward the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you, the joint address, millions of Americans watched your joint address earlier this week, where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much, because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks. And these are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies. And I gave them a little bit of a 1-month reprieve because it was unfair, although I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and taking advantage of it a little bit. But they called me, they asked me, they said, could they have a little bit of help? And I decided, they're American companies, USMCA, and I let them have that. But this really kicks in, the reciprocals, kicks in on.
आपका ये छोटा सा स्क्रबर सिर्फ स्क्रबर नहीं, बैक्टीरिया की 362 वैरायटी की टाउनशिप है, जो बर्तनों पे छुट्टी मनाने के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहती है। इसलिए वॉश डिशवॉशर विद फिनिश टैब्लेट्स, जो 70 डिग्री हॉट वाटर के साथ हर बर्तन को दे गहरी सफाई। स्विच टू फिनिश एंड वॉश, द राइट वे टू डिशवॉश।
We found Next IT in a point of transition. So for us, we were trying to get away from old technology and go into a more modern space. So our biggest concern was, can we find a partner that we trust, that's actually going to do what they say and be there for the long term? Next IT offered that solution, and even coming in with better product, better service, we still found a considerable cost savings. For us, we're investing our members' money, so it means a lot to us. Having the ability to finance with Next IT and knowing that we're no longer throwing good money after bad, it basically made it a no-brainer. Next IT's professionalism and expertise has been exactly what we needed. We know we have a responsive team. If we need anything, they're always available. And we found a long-term partner that we know that we're going to have a future with.
Let's see, I guess the second. And I wanted it to be the first so badly, just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day. So I made it the second. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other parts of the world. But the other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's hard to believe. 90,000, think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now, the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments. And, you can't just, I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, no, I'm not going to give you anything. And then you wouldn't have had to say, well, they're getting a little extra. It's just a little bit of a 1-month reprieve. They're very happy about what's happening. They won't have to go across borders. And you see the zigzagging. You have a fender made in Canada. You have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it. But I think very little. I think very little. On occasion, if we can do something, we want to help companies. We want to help companies create jobs. So I could have left that and you wouldn't have had a minor change. Instead, I was asked by the real majors, the big majors, if they could do this. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. I want you to produce a lot of jobs. And numerous of the people, actually all of the people I spoke to have already been, they're very much on the way to already do it. That's why you have auto jobs increase. And the man, I don't know him, Sean Fain, I don't know him, and I did great, as you know, with the auto workers, with the Teamsters, with unions, I did fantastically well. Best numbers ever by a Republican. And I have a lot of respect for those people. But Sean Fain, who I don't know, but wasn't a supporter, although the auto workers were big supporters. I watched him last night and he said, Donald Trump is absolutely right on tariffs. He said, what he's doing on tariffs is an incredible thing. And it's about time somebody had the guts to do it because we're going to save auto manufacturing. And I said to people when I was campaigning, you're going to have so many auto jobs, you're not going to believe what's going to happen. We're going to load up Michigan. I won the state of Michigan, as you know. And part of the reason I won it was I got a lot of auto workers that voted for me, Detroit, et cetera. But I think people are going to be very surprised. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned in your remarks chips manufacturing, how a significant percentage is now in Taiwan. You also mentioned it in your address to Congress, and you called on Congress to overturn the CHIPS Act, which had bipartisan support in the last Congress. Why would you like to see this particular law overturned, Mr. President?
Because it's hundreds of billions of dollars and it's just a waste of money. Now, some people have already taken the money and used it. Actually, it's very hard to qualify because they go by race, they go by gender, they go by all sorts of things. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You won't be able to find those people. So I don't even think anybody can qualify. They have so many different categories in order to qualify. You have to have so many of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain this, a certain, and I don't think they can qualify, but if they take the money, they better qualify because they'll be watching them. but it's a tremendous waste of money. I didn't give the greatest chip company in the world, one of the greatest companies, I didn't give them 10 cents. They came here because of tariffs, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And they also came here because they like the results of the election, because they know that I'm very pro-business and pro-jobs. I mean, I'm pro-business, not for business sake. I'm pro-business because of jobs, because business is producing the jobs. Okay?
Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. Can't do that.
Mr. President.
We're trying to help them. And Ukraine has to get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there.
क्या आज फिर मूड का बैंड बजेगा? बज गया।
रोज सुबह वही सैड मूड।
बाथरूम डल तो मॉर्निंग डल।
डिटर्जेंट से घिसते तो हैं हम।
डिटर्जेंट की डलनेस हटाओ, हार्पिक बाथरूम क्लीनर की चमक लाओ। काई पीलापन आसानी से हटाए और करे 10 गुना ज्यादा साफ।
वाओ!
हार्पिक बाथरूम क्लीनर, बाथरूम जगमगाए
तो दिन बन जाए।
और आप लोग मेरा डांस भी देख सकते हैं।
Good. I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself, and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get the ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance. But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop. They're losing on average 2,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers. Do you agree, Peter?
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides. I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has said, this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary-General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month and his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump.
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals, including murderers, thousands of murderers, many killed, far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But Tom Holman and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here, and we'll get them out. We'll get them all out. But all these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing a good job. We're doing a good job.
President, in regards to the pause on military assistance to Ukraine, you put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of?
Well, because good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death, more important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So we're in for $350 billion and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled. This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
So on Iran, how confident are you that the Iranians will negotiate with you? And is Israel on board with this outrage?
Yeah, I saw the hostages the other day. They came in, people that were not young, some young and some older, much older. And they gave it was hard for them to do it, actually. They gave statements as to what happened. I was asking, what happened? How was it? I said, did you see anybody in there that was kind, like out of the hundreds of people that you were seeing, Hamas? Did some of them wink at you and say, don't worry, you're going to be okay, or give you a piece of bread, or no? I said, were there any people that were like kind? I was shocked. The answer was nobody. There was nobody, just the opposite. They'd be slapped and punched. One man broke his ribs. He couldn't breathe for a month. It was brutal. I was so surprised. Could you think there'd be a couple of people that would be kind, that would say, you're going to be okay? But they had none of that. It's pretty amazing. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. President.
He's a kind person.
Well, according to
Although not to Zelensky, he wasn't. But to Trump, he's been good. Go ahead, Brian.
Nice tie, by the way. Look, we coordinated. Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah. It's a very good question. Sometimes questions aren't answerable. They're in a very unusual position. They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started, you could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian. And it didn't start. For 4 years, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir about it. I used to speak to him about it at length. It was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going in. And he knew, there were going to be consequences. But it did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation, you have the war with Ukraine and Russia, that wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran had no money. Iran was stone cold broke. And now they have a lot of money. And that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. We're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But
Here at Next IT Solutions, we ask that you give us 90 days to prove ourselves. Allow us to show you that we have the right team and the right support. After those 90 days, you'll be confident to give us another opportunity to extend our finance offer to you. We can lock in those benefits and secure some significant cost savings. It takes a lifetime to build a strong reputation, but a moment to lose that credibility. Here at Next IT, we have dedicated technicians, a solid support team, and each person will respond with precision and accuracy to every support request that you put in. Give us those 90 days, allow us to show you what we can do, and then allow us to also bring a finance offer to where you can lock in benefits, take advantage of those cost savings. My name is Joseph Morielli. Joseph at nxt-it.com is my email. Give me a ring. I'll get back to you right away with the best solution to take care of you and your company.
we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, I saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion, all in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right? So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world, but we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon, very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem.
Mr. President, your allies are calling on you to pardon Derek Chauvin. Are you considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No,
Mr. President, on peace.
I haven't heard that.
In the first term, you may recall, I broke the news that you were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason for that was the work that you led on the Abraham Accords. I spoke yesterday with the member of parliament, the Norwegian parliament, that nominated you. And he said, what the Nobel Committee is looking for from you, Mr. President, is security guarantees for Ukraine. Is that a possibility, Mr. President?
So before I even think about that, I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that. The prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them. We're losing 2,000 human beings every week. More than that, actually. 2,000 nice, young, although they're getting older because they're drafting much older now. In the case of one country, much older, because a lot of the young people have been killed. It's very sad, and I'd like to see if I could stop that. And I'd like to also see if we could stop making these massive payments from the United States. I mean, Biden gave away money like it was water, with no anything, got nothing for it. Europe did it in the form of a loan. They get their money back, we don't. So that's how we came up with the rare earth deal. But we started, behind the 8 ball. He could have gone to Europe. He could have said, "Come on, you got to put up money with us. You got to put up money with us." But he never did that. They just kept handing money out because he was grossly incompetent. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Look good, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
हाय मिसेस मेहता।
तुम तो डुप्लीकेट हो।
आपके टॉयलेट में भी तो डुप्लीकेट है।
पर 1+1 का ऑफर भी तो है।
अब चलेगा। सस्ते 1+1 टॉयलेट क्लीनर्स का चक्कर महंगा पड़ जाए, क्योंकि ये ज्यादा बहे तो ज्यादा लगे। नए बेस्ट एवर हार्पिक का नया फॉर्मूला, कम बहे इसलिए ज्यादा चले और अब खुशबू से भी महका। अब ये ट्राई नहीं किया
तो क्या किया?
Nourishing my essence helps me feel radiant. Taking time for myself restores my glow. It's these small, mindful rituals that make me feel truly me, that make me feel like Shadvari. Because beauty is rooted in you. Well-being nutrition for the beauty within.
Thank you very much. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Rodolphe Sade, the chairman and CEO of CMA CGM, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, probably number 2 in the world, probably going to be number 1 in the not too distant future, knowing him. They employ over 160,000 employees. They have 750 major container vessels worldwide. And I'm thrilled to announce that he's going to be investing $20 billion into the United States because of the election results, which comes along with a lot of other things like great protections and other things. This massive investment will go toward building out shipping logistics, infrastructure, and terminals, which will create an estimated 10,000 new jobs in America. It's so important because it's about shipping. We lost our way for many years. We haven't done anything. We used to build a ship a day, and now we essentially don't build ships. We're going to start that, and we're going to be announcing next week or the week after a massive new program for building very large, the largest ships in the world. And it'll have to do with incentives, taxes. They'll be coming from all over the world, just like they are with cars, with what we've done with tariffs. And we have at least 7 new major car plants that are going to be starting very shortly because of what we're doing with the tariffs, which will primarily start on April the 2nd. Most of the tariffs go in April the 2nd. Right now we have some temporary ones and small ones on relatively small, although it's a lot of money having to do with Mexico and Canada. But the predominant tariffs they'll be reciprocal in nature. They'll be going on April the 2nd. So we'll be talking about that. It'll be a big game changer for our country because we've been ripped off by every country in the world. And now whatever they charge us 150, 200%, and we charge them nothing. So whatever they charge us, we're going to charge them. And there'll be no getting out of it. So we look forward to April 2nd. I've been looking forward to that date for a long time. I had it as April 1st, but I didn't want to be hit for April Fool's Day. I'm a very superstitious person. So we made it April 2nd. It probably cost us a lot of money doing that, but it's okay. I feel better about it. And that'll be something very big. But I'd like to ask Rodolphe if you'd say a few words, please, about what you're going to do and also about the possibility of ship building in our country. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yes, indeed, we are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. We are very enthusiastic about this big announcement of today. We are investing $20 billion in shipping and logistics. This means the creation of 10,000 new American jobs. We're also looking at investing in shipbuilding of container vessels, and we most probably we'll be making also announcement in the next coming weeks. And we would like also, Mr. President, to go for more US flag vessels. And we will go from 10 that we operate today to 30 US flag ships, and hopefully doing more in the months to come. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you and congratulations on your great success. He's built one of the, with his father, before him, built one of the great shipping empires of the world. And that is, I never heard 750. That sounds like a lot to me, doesn't it, huh?
It is, Mr. President.
That's a fantastic company. Congratulations. Really great job. And a real honor to have you. Why is it that more people don't have American flags? They seem to have Panamanian flags and Liberian flags. They don't seem to have a lot of American flags.
But this will change, Mr. President. You will have more ships with US flag as we move forward, and you can count on us to do as much as we can.
That's very good. It's true. Other countries take advantage of us even on that. So we're going to be changing that around, and I appreciate you coming up and even bringing it to our attention. It's really a great thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Appreciate it. Will, could you come over? We're going to
Yes, sir.
sign some executive orders.
Sir, your administration has made it a priority both to end lawfare and the weaponization of government, and also to hold those who have engaged in lawfare accountable. One of the law firms that has been involved in that is called Perkins Coie. That's also a law firm that has engaged in unlawful DEI practices. This executive order will suspend.
And I've watched it take place.
This executive order will suspend security clearances and access to certain federal resources for that law firm, and also launch a holistic review of unlawful DEI practices at some of the nation's largest law firms.
This is an absolute honor to sign. What they've done is it's just terrible. It's weaponization. You could say weaponization against a political opponent, and it should never be allowed to happen again. And you're looking at about 15 different firms?
That or more, sir, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. One of the tools the left has consistently used to frustrate good government policies has been the use of injunctions and temporary restraining orders. Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C allows for essentially a demand for an injunction bond for folks who are seeking temporary restraining orders and injunctions to post a bond before they're allowed to proceed in court. This presidential memorandum would order the Department of Justice, its litigating components, to seek those injunction bonds whenever someone tries to challenge our policies in court, so that when they end up losing in court, and we believe that they will end up losing in court, that they can be held financially responsible for the disruption to federal activities that their actions have caused.
Right. Something they've wanted to do a long time, right? They've been looking to do this for years?
Yes, sir.
And why they just never got it?
This is a rule that's been on the books for a very long time. The Department of Justice has been very inconsistent in seeking these bonds.
From a legal standpoint, really a very big thing.
Thank you, sir. In order to protect American car manufacturers and American farmers, we have two modifications to the IEEPA tariffs that have already been announced against Canada and Mexico. This first order relates to Canada. Essentially, what it will allow for is the flow of parts and sub-assembly products into America to allow American car manufacturers to continue building cars. It basically excludes USMCA eligible goods from existing tariffs. And also, in order to help our farmers at this crucial time of year, we're going to be reducing the tariff imposed on Canadian potash from 25% to 10%. So this is a modification to our tariff regime to protect American car manufacturers and American farmers.
It basically makes it more fair for our car manufacturers during the short-term period before April 2nd. April 2nd is a little bit different. That will be much more significant. But during this interim period between now and April 2nd, this makes it much more favorable for our American car manufacturers.
ओहो, लाइट चली गई। पहले पुरानी मशीन बंद हो जाती और फिर मच्छर की वजह से बच्चा उठ जाता।
लेकिन अब ये परेशानी नहीं। पुराने गुड नाइट के मुकाबले नया गुड नाइट बना है ऐसे एडवांस्ड फॉर्मूला से जो चले बिजली जाने के 2 घंटे बाद तक।
नया गुड नाइट लिक्विड।
Feels great, naturally. Feels breezy, always.